Pattern at the bottom. I have to. What? What? Hi! I'm so glad you're here. I'm so cold. When it comes to women's fashion of the turn of the 20th century, one of the most popular images that comes to mind is the Gibson Girl. To quote the Smithsonian American Art Museum, the Gibson Girl was the model of American womanhood in the 1890s and into the 20th century. Created by American artist Charles Dana Gibson, the Gibson Girl was iconic, and the charm still lives on today in people who love historical fashion. I've known about the Gibson Girl style for a while. I refer to it more often as a spinster librarian look for myself, but what I didn't know is that I actually have a Gibson Girl book on my shelf, and I have for years. The cover is in very rough shape. The binding has almost completely broken down, but surprisingly enough, for a book from 1898, the prints and pages themselves are in pretty good shape. I say 1898 because I can't find any other printing dates on this, and given its condition, I would assume that this is an 1898 print, so I will be referring to it as such. My nose is very red. I'm very cold. Now, the artwork is really cool to look at. I really like the style, although some of the cartoons are pretty rough, I would say, in its portrayal of different races and in its portrayal of women. I did some very, very, very light research on Mr. Gibson, and I didn't learn a ton. Surprisingly, I tried to look at art websites, museum websites, but I didn't really learn much. But I was just kind of curious, especially after seeing some of these more rough cartoons, which I'm not going to show. But it was interesting to read that this was the depiction of an independent American woman when basically every joke and every cartoon has to do with marriage and men, especially when most of the jokes are of the women, am I right? And the, gosh, I hate being married, my wife, variety. Also because most of the narrative is a man referring to a woman or talking about a woman in the cartoons. Rarely is it the woman speaking or saying anything in the cartoons, and when they are, it's mainly a short remark or a quip about men and marriage. Maybe for the time, it was a fun depiction of an independent woman. I don't see it. I just see depictions of beautiful women and little snippets of the time, and it's especially interesting looking at the depictions of older women or women who are already married, and those depictions are often unflattering of their character and image, to say the least. That being said, some of the drawings of young couples falling in love are very sweet. It is interesting looking at some of the political cartoons, which prompted me to look up quite a few things because I had many questions. But I'm not here to tell you anything about Mr. Gibson or the Gibson Girls, truly, because I'm not a historian. Well, I make things. But if you'd like to watch some folks that are more informed and know a ton more than I do and also make things, I would check out Kaz Rowe's channel, Bernadette Banner, Karolina Zabrowska. Probably didn't pronounce that correctly. I'll put it down in the caption. And as somebody who regularly gets their last name butchered by everybody, I'm so sorry. As well as Morgan Donner. They all know much more about historical fashion and historical things, and if you like that content, I would go to their channel. And though I don't know much about historical fashion, but I do make things, I thought it would be fun to try and make my own version of one of the Gibson Girls from my book, using all thrifted materials, or as many as I can manage. There's a lot to be done, so I'm gonna go get to work. First, I sat down and looked through the entire book to see what kind of options I was working with. And let me tell you, there are some wild cartoons in here. But eventually I came across this one, which I originally forgot to film. The joke is that the father doesn't want any of the men to marry his daughter, so he writes unappealing things about her on a sign that she then has to wear around the event. Very fun, very healthy. So I decided I wanted to turn this one around and write good alternatives to the words she has on her sign. After choosing my picture, I decided to go to Bernadette Banner's channel to watch a corset making video for some research, and then I spilled coffee all over myself and my laptop. Luckily, it didn't get into the keys, otherwise you wouldn't be watching this video. After refilling my coffee and bundling up because it was so darn cold, I activated spinster mode and continued my research and began sketching my plan. I made a sort of paper doll in Procreate so I could switch out the colors and patterns to see which combination I liked the best. And then watching the video, I realized I am not at all prepared to make a corset the 1890s way, or any way, really. Okay, after drawing 12 variations of basically the same thing, I think I have a better idea of what I want to do. In the past, I've regretted not just going full cosplay and trying to make things wearable that didn't end up being wearable, but I think I can make this so that every piece is wearable on its own. And I'm gonna try. Okay, I'm gonna have to talk over this pipe that's running for some reason, but I've waited for 3 minutes and it hasn't stopped. So but I think the plan right now is to make the green top actually the top of a dress that's shorter that I could wear underneath, and for this to be a skirt. The pipe is so loud. And the hope is that I'll be able to wear each piece separately, one as a dress and one as a skirt. I'm taking quite a few creative liberties because in the sketch it doesn't appear that there's a pattern of any sort on her dress, top or bottom. Not that we can see, but from what you can see it doesn't appear to be patterned. And it'll either be that floral leaf print sheet or this kind of fancier fabric, which I'm a little afraid to use up. It's a weirdly frustrating thing to find such a cool fabric in a thrift shop or at a garage sale because it's such an exciting find. But then I find myself avoiding that fabric at all costs because I know that that's all I have and I'm so afraid of messing up and wasting it and then regretting not having it for a future project. And I might make a very, very basic corset to wear underneath this. I really wanted to dive more into historical fashion with this, but I don't think I have the time or the resources to go full history mode, so I'm just going to do my best with what I have to make a corset. I tried looking for a specific 1890s skirt pattern, but I couldn't find any that were either in my price range or in my size range, so it's probably going to be a long circle skirt. But maybe one day we'll get into the nitty-gritty of historical fashion with a project and we'll be able to explore some of the skills required to do that. But for this video, I am just wildly unprepared to do any of that. So I am going to try and make it wearable. Will I be successful? Only time will tell. So I'm going to call it a night and we'll hit the ground running tomorrow. So I'll see you then.
Well, hello. What? Can I help you? Are you coming up or not? That's still very unclear. Gotcha. Oh, hello, Maya. How are you? Your little ears are so cold. Let me go turn the heater on? Wait, you have a hair. Wait, you have a hair.
Hello! It's the next day. I decided to just go all in today. There is a lot to do, which is basically everything. I almost spilled my coffee all over myself again, and I dropped my mascara wand while I was using it, so the Wi-Fi connection between my brain and my hands is not very strong, so hopefully the connectivity improves while I'm working, because if not, it's going to be an interesting day. First up, we're going to make a very basic corset by altering a pattern that I already have. I might try and take some of the techniques that I learned in Bernadette Banner's video and try to apply them to my own altered pattern, but the plan is also still to make the bodice a part of a dress that goes underneath the longer skirt that will be worn over top. Did any of that make sense? I don't know. I wrote a script for the intro and I didn't write a script for any other part of the video, so we're just flying first class by the seat of our pants. Also, I'm very excited about my tiny locket because I've had this for a few years, but I've never put pictures in it before, but I finally did put some pictures in it last night, and I won't show my family photos, but I do have pictures of my family from both sides of my family and all 4 of my siblings. But I can show you tiny itty bitty little pearl. So cute. I'm gonna get to work. I grabbed some plain white material and this shiny thrifted sheet and sat down to alter this corset pattern even though I had no idea what I was going to do with it. I ended up just lengthening each piece and drawing some small pads for the hips. I sewed each piece wrong sides together as she did in the corset video and grabbed some thrifted bias tape to cover them up, which would also then become some of the boning channels. Another step I learned from Bernadette's video is using basting stitches to keep my layers together while I'm sewing. I don't usually do this, but it was kind of nice to take the time and put them in. I decided to go with a mixture of blue and white bias tapes for the boning channels because that's what I had and I didn't feel like making new bias tape. It looks a little eclectic, for sure, with all the different sizes and colors, but I just needed it to function. I sewed everything down, then moved on to adding the hip pads. I was running out of corset boning, so I decided to cut into this old Tupperware lid I've been chopping away at for various projects. I can't sew through the pieces, but I think they'll still work. Next, I decided on the lace for the top and added the grommets down the front. It took me all day and now it is quite late, but I am finally putting the finishing touches onto the corset. I still have yet to fully try it on laced up, but it should work, hopefully. If not, I will maybe only have a small mental breakdown. But given that it took me all day to do this, we're going to do all of the dress sewing tomorrow, so I'll see you then. Hello. It's the next day, and it feels like -3 degrees outside. Lots to be done today. I have to pattern the top of the dress, although I was considering just using the same pattern I used for this blouse, because the dress in the picture is just kind of off the shoulder entirely with puff sleeves, which this pattern is. Although, maybe that would work better. Although I think my Barbie dress bodice might be a good choice for this, now that I think about it. So I think I've changed my plan just a little bit. I don't think I'm going to draft a new bodice because thinking of how I would do it, I already have a pattern that would basically be the same thing, and that's my Barbie dress pattern. It can technically be a sleeveless bodice pattern, which is what I would need, and then all I have to do is make some puff sleeves and attach them. So not only am I saving myself some work time, but I think it'll actually work better. I still haven't decided which fabric I want to use for the skirt, because I really think both would look good, and I just don't know which direction I want to go with it. A larger print or a smaller, more detailed print. But I think what's guiding this decision the most is what skirt will I be more likely to wear in my day-to-day after this is done, and I feel like the smaller print is something I'd be more likely to wear. So we might go with the smaller print. I feel like I'm embodying that quote from Pride and Prejudice. I'm 27. I've no money. No prospects. I'm a burden to my family. There's lots to be done, so I'm gonna go get to work. It's finally time to make the dress. The green fabric that I'm using used to be a bed sheet, and I cut out all the pieces. The small print fabric that I'm using for the long skirt came from somebody's fabric stash at an estate sale. There were 3 pieces of the printed fabric in each bundle, and there should have been enough there for 6 identical skirt panels, but the measurements were a little off, so it was a bit of a tight squeeze. Then I got to sewing everything together, and I apparently had a very big reaction to the latest Misfits and Magic season. For the ruffle on the top, I just made a tube of green fabric and pleated it around the top of the bodice, and then I covered it up with some bias tape. Moving on to the sleeves, I wasn't planning on using elastic at first, but I knew long term it would just be more comfortable to wear. Then it was time to hem the skirts. I abandoned this very quickly and just added some lace with a zigzag stitch to cover up the raw edges. Then all that was left for the dress was attaching the sleeves, which needed a little fixing because it was a bit too big around my shoulders at first, but after a quick fix, the dress was done. Onto the long skirt, I connected all the panels together and made a waistband from some carefully cut scraps. Before long, the skirt was done, and I moved on to trying to make some gloves. I wish I could say that this went well. It did not. Between this old lace that I originally wanted to use and the stretchy brown fabric I was willing to try using, I'm sorry to say that neither attempt yielded a wearable, usable pair of gloves. Okay, so the gloves didn't exactly work out. I think the first pair would have worked better if the lace wasn't so fragile. It was ripping apart at every little flower. Every little movement and every little pull, it just was tearing apart. And trying it with a more stretchy fabric almost worked. The fingers were just a little too narrow, so that didn't exactly work. But other than the gloves, everything is done, so it's time for the reveal. I enjoyed making this quite a bit. I like the dress, I like the skirt. The corset, however, I only regret making just a little bit because I took a whole day to do it and it sort of works. I wouldn't say there's a lot of support. In the north, my hope was for the top to be tight enough without getting too descriptive or specific. My hope was that by not making it an entire cup and by making it tight enough, it would just kind of, I think I made it just a touch too big so that it can't tighten enough. And putting the lacing in the front also leaves me with some weird shapes going on that you can see through the dress. So maybe one day I will try again with an actual pattern for that kind of corset. I still think it's pretty usable. I think I might take the top off completely because right now what's going on in the north is just a little bit too goofy for my taste. I really like this dress. I've had this material for a little over a year and I always look at it in my fabric shelves and wonder what I'm gonna make with it. And I really like that I went with a more plain, simple dress to go underneath the big skirt. And I really like what I made with it. The construction on the sleeves is a bit odd. I had to take it in significantly and I still think it could do with a little bit more, but by taking it in, what I mean is I did try to take it off, cut and adjust it, but that wasn't enough. And so instead of taking the entire thing apart, I just kind of folded it, sewed it down toward the back. And I think it could do with a little bit more to kind of help this stay up a little bit and to not fall off as much. But that's really my only issue with it. I also did give up hemming it. I didn't even get halfway through before I just thought I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it twice. I would have to hem this dress and the long skirt, and I do not like hemming circle skirts. I don't like hemming circle skirts. If I can find a way around hemming a circle skirt, I will. I do have a machine foot that is specifically for hemming, but it never fully works. Despite my best efforts, it never stays where it's supposed to be, and then it's no longer the perfect clean hem that I wanted. So did I give up on hemming this skirt? Yes, because I knew I was going to have to hem the big one and instead zigzag stitched some lace on the bottom, which I think adds to the whole cottagecore kind of vibe it has. And also between the lace, the thread, and the fabric, this is 100% secondhand. So green dress, 100%. Love it. I also really like the long skirt. It's a little bit tight in the waist. I was afraid of that happening because I opened one of the two bundles of that fabric that I had and I really didn't want to have to crack into the second one, just in case I want to use it for a future project. So I tried to squeeze 6 panels out of the 3 pieces that I had in that first bundle, and the dimensions that were written on the tape weren't exact. Each piece in these 3-piece bundles was off by like an inch or 2, and that's significant when you're trying to get identically sized pieces out of it, which just kind of happens sometimes when you thrift fabric. The dimensions written on the tags might not be exact, but you do what you can with what you've got. And I think it worked out. I am excited to wear both of these just day to day, more casually. The gloves, as you can see, did not work. The lace I wanted to use is stretchy, however, it is also quite old. It was a thrifted, I think it was a tablecloth, and I remembered it being stretchy, which it is, and the elastic and the thread was pretty brittle. Around the flowers especially, pulling it just too much snaps the threads. So those super cool gloves didn't really work. And to push myself to try this glove pattern, I don't particularly like using stretchy fabrics, but I knew I had some brown stretchy fabric that I had been saving for a different project, so I decided to give it a go with that. And I learned that this glove pattern fits my arm pretty well, but it does not fit my fingers very well. Got little chonkies, little chonka-chonks, which I love, but they don't make making gloves any easier. So next time I try that, I'm gonna have to make the fingers a bit bigger. It's funny because I think it worked on 2 of the 4 fingers, but it didn't work on the other 2. And that could just be how I stitched it together. Maybe it's not the pattern at all. I'll have to just try it again with better fabric for it and maybe hand stitch them instead of machine stitch them, because I think I'll have a little bit more freedom to kind of do the curves. But other than the gloves not working out and the corset being 50% useful, I really like how everything turned out. And if you do too, you can let me know by hitting the like button. And if you want to join the channel and see what we're doing next, hit the subscribe button. And if you want to know when I post, hit the notification bell and YouTube will let you know. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!
Speed up the belt sound.
Fortune, fame, and a ruined name, and now I'm the girl on the swing.
jealous man. That was the end of Stan.
People called it ragtime.
Just the youngest